Yes. Hello, Don in London, September the 25th. Big grin on my face. Partly because it's sunny out, and partly because I'm still here and able to share experience, strength and hope of recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance addiction, alcoholic in recovery, and equally addicted to people, places and things in an unhealthy way. That is, wanting to be with the right people, wanting to be in the right place, wanting the right things, and wanting to be doing the right things, fitting in, being included, being a part of, and quite able to bend myself in all directions at once in order that I would be the person I felt you wanted me to be. So a strong desire just to be one of the people who you would like, love, include in your life. And yet, at the same time, still having no real clue about how to live life on life's terms. Why? Well, simple. I didn't feel good enough. I had a lot of fear in me, and it came from upbringing, and there is no blame in that, because people can only do what they know how to do. And ironically, or just simply with a great big surprise, I learned later in life that people are doing the very, very best they can, even when it feels like the worst, for me. And that led to a lot of heartbreak, a lot of not being able to let go, wondering what I had done wrong, always feeling there must have been something else I could have done, either to be loved, or be able to love other people. But, life is a bit random when it comes to love and relationships and all that stuff. And we imagine if we make ourselves a certain way, then a person may love us. But the truth is, it's not up to us whether somebody else loves us. It's whether we can love them. And if we're lucky, they may reciprocate or relate in the same way. So a lot of my problems were misunderstandings about how life worked, how people worked. And I thought I knew how people worked. And in many respects I did. But I was clueless when it came to me. And what was motivating me? I didn't know what fear was really, except it must have been there forever. I didn't know what it was to put on a brave face, but I must have been doing it for a very long time. And ego, my ego, which is about me and how I feel, covering up shame and guilt about fear and not being the person you needed in your life, or even wanted, or desired. These days, it's not about that. In recovery from addiction, which is where it led, I understand it's okay to love people, be loved back, and useful. That's as basic as it is, to love, be loved, and useful. And how we learn to love is what we do every day, by being included. How we can feel love back and accept it without conditions. We can't lay conditions on love, we just can't. Unconditional love is one of the greatest gifts I've come to understand in recovery. And being useful, part of being useful is having a happy life whilst be here, but also recognise that with happiness comes sadness. The opposite can happen when we have losses. And I know when I first gave up drinking, it was like grieving my best friend. I had no clue how to cope. I had no clue how to live life anymore, because drink took everything away, my feelings and my ability to live in the moment. And it took a long time to come to terms with having thrown myself on a scrap heap, that I kept digging into it rather than trying to dig out. In this book, I've got immense pain today physically. I'll explain why in a moment or two, or a bit later. I share a lot about how to get into recovery from being addicted to anything really, whether it's any particular substance. Mine was alcohol, it could have been anything, and my behaviour around people, places and things, always trying to be in the right place, right people, right things, and I couldn't do it on my own. And a fellowship came along into my life called Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know quite how it happened. I never related to the idea that a fellowship could help me. Indeed, it was the very opposite of what I would want. I would want to be able to put my brave face on, have a stiff upper lip, and use self-will and will myself back into health. And in many respects, with the right equipment, that is, the right attitude and the right behaviours, I can. But where do they come from? Well, if I'm left to my own devices as an addict, I'll probably keep on trying self-will until it kills me. Willpower will fail. But these days I've realised the freedom is to let go of being right, let go of trying to do it on my own, let go of old attitudes and behaviour, even now, several years into sobriety. Because if I relate to people, understand people, have people in my life who are sober, they can keep on helping me be sober by their experiences of life as it is today. And that applies to people within the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and a whole host of people outside of it, namely the rest of planet Earth, with everybody on it. Everything and everybody helps me keep sober, directly or indirectly. But the one person who can make it all go wrong again is me. If I isolate, get fearful, look at the darkness in life, I can become utterly depressed and think a drink might be a good idea again. But I know it won't be. But I'm human, so I need support and to keep on learning how to do life. Not do it, to live life, to experience life as it is today. So the fellowship of AA is all about emotional and spiritual well-being. Emotional is feelings, spiritual, as has been said by many a person, is the ability, spiritual living is the ability to cope with reality and live it as it is. Live life on life's terms. So a fellowship based on emotional and spiritual well-being, as best it can be given our own personal circumstances, is ideal, but completely rejected by me in the first instance because not invented here. I needed to do it myself, prove myself, all those things. And as a society and in many of our civilizations across the globe, we value the winner and not the striver. Many people strive for high ideals and office, but there are only a few places where those ideals can be achieved, and only by a few. Simply there aren't enough places to go and achieve these things and be kingpin, or queenpin, if that's a way of looking at it. So I've learned it's in the journey, the endeavour, how to love, be loved and useful in the moment of now. Knowing what my feelings are, knowing what is possible. I still have my dreams and ambitions and inspirations. At the same time, more often they're real, based on life today. So no longer living in the fantasy and cloud cuckoo land. If I strive and strive and strive, I'll be top. I don't want to be top. There is no value in it, intrinsically. The value is in now, living now, and the happiness or sadness as life is, and learning the difference over and over again, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. That's the beauty of life. It's not about being number one, although there is some pleasure in that if you just do it and if you just live life and get there by accident, I suppose. But if you actually think, when I get to a certain place I'll be okay, which is always me. When I have the right job, the right girl, the right family, the right children, the right this, that or the other, then life will look right and be right. How wrong I was. These days it's not about looking right or being right, it's just about being a person living as life is. And needs met, wants forgotten. So AA, how does it help me? I'm very lucky, because it only took me about 47 years to get there, to a place where I could listen to a new way of living and still feel very confused about life. And even some years on, I can still feel very confused about life, because life is confusing, and that's part of the great mystery, isn't it? We don't know what's coming next. Well, at least I didn't yesterday. Anyway, about AA, I don't represent it, never can, never will, don't want to. I'm just one of everybody, really, a trusted servant, because we don't have any leaders, and we make up our minds how the fellowship works as groups. And we have trusted servants fulfilling service positions to help things run smoothly in an administrative way, but not in a leader way. We have no leaders, and I'm not a leader. I'm just sharing my experience, strength and hope, same as you will find in any meeting. So the good news is you get your identity back, and in fellowship we only have one similarity, a desire to be sober and then share a message. Anyway, I'm going to read out the AA preamble from this piece of card. I'll read it out because it reminds me what is possible, why AA works, not only for me but for many people. And I know it doesn't work for everyone, and that's contingent on how healthy we are, how stable we are, how mentally we have screwed ourselves up, and the obvious rejection of something which seems alien to us. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and it can't be. Although I guess I've never met such a diverse group of people in the fellowship. Everyone is different, with one primary purpose and a desire to be sober. Anyway, this is what the AA preamble says, and inside this card also is the 12 steps of AA and the 12 traditions. And I know you can't see it too well. It's because I've turned off the follow and focus bit so that this video isn't out of sync too much. I think my processor's dying on me, but that's alright. Eventually I'll get another one, or not. So 12 traditions hold the fellowship together in unity, service and recovery. 12 steps for me to live life as happy as it can be, or as sad as it can be, and everything in between. So the AA preamble goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And that really is so appealing, a desire to stop drinking. And I don't know that I had one when I first went to AA. But the other part of that is, if that's the only requirement, a desire to stop drinking, the other part is, in the traditions, there are no rules or laws or regulations which can be imposed upon you. Because if there are any rules, laws or regulations, then most people would leave, because we are stubborn, defiant, independent people, pretty much, and we don't like being told what to do. So if people tell us what to do, we'll go, and then there would be no fellowship. So rules, laws and regulations were not anyone's cup of tea, so they were discarded. So it's down to a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, so if you have no money, please come anyway if you want to stop drinking or have a desire to stop. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, so when we can we pay a few pennies into the pot to cover rent, tea, coffee, biscuits, literature and some administration costs. But nobody has power over the purse. No one individual controls anything. So it's all done for us as trusted servants, and if we're looking after the pot or the treasury by group, we are administering it on behalf of the group as the group tells us. We don't have any power. There is no power base in AA. Thank God for that. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. But the most important thing to remember in that is you are allied to all sorts of things outside fellowship as you choose, and often you will share about them in fellowship, but as long as you don't impose your views or opinions on others, but you can express them. After all, we are a democracy, anarchic democracy. You're allowed to say whatever you want to say, and no one is there to shut you up. And if they do try to, because either you're going on too long, like I often do, then I suppose it's down to how we want to conduct ourselves rather than impose ourselves on others. So you can be what you want to be, and that's important. If you can't be what you want to be, what's the point in being? Or, if you were like me, didn't know who you were, what you wanted to be, and where you were going in the end. So, the fellowship is not allied to anything, and it has one primary purpose. It's for us to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So whatever your causes, beliefs, opinions and ideas, and it's part of you, and it helps you with your recovery, share about it. And the reason why I emphasise that this morning is because when I went to a meeting not so long ago, well, last night in fact, somebody apologised because they're an atheist. Now, I've been an atheist, agnostic and believer, depending on what's happened in my life. And if I lived on an island where I'd been manufacturing alcohol on my own, and nobody had told me there was a God, I wouldn't have had a chance to believe in one, would I? But if somebody came along, or a group of people came along, maybe there were pilgrims, and I was an Indian. No, this is just silly, but it has relevance. If a group of people came along and said, listen, sober life is better, but I've been drunk out of my head for years and years and years, I might have laughed at them and said, life is sweet, food is plentiful. What do you mean you're going to take it away from me because you've now decided it's your land and you want to take away my booze? I might not have been so nice about it. But in fellowship, nobody's trying to take anything away from you. They're trying to give you and share with you what's working for them. So whatever an atheist says, whatever an agnostic says, whatever a believer may say, it may have relevance, and there are similarities in there which are going to keep you sober today. So I don't mind what you believe in. People talk about higher powers in AA. Well, people talk about the higher power in their life. There are no higher powers in AA. We're all the same level, equal, trusted servants. So if you believe in God, great. If you don't believe in God, great. If you're not sure, great. What works for me though, and I'm allowed to say it anywhere, especially in meetings, is I've come to understand that truth, love, wisdom are key components of what I call a higher power. So truth as it is, the truth of now, is not my opinion or belief, it's what is true. Love in my life means how to love and be loved back, and useful. So truth, love. And where do I get my wisdom? I get it from everything and everywhere these days. A lot of wisdom about sobriety in fellowship, a lot of wisdom about life on planet Earth. So I need to be included, plugged in, and able to listen. And this is what fellowship has given me over the years, how to listen, how to be a part of. So, steps in action for me, 12-step program. In this book, Daily Reflections, it covers one step a month, or one step and one tradition a month. So the steps help me be open, honest and willing to keep on learning life, and be humble in the truest sense, which is to have humility to keep on learning life. And when I don't like learning something, it's telling me I need to learn something. So if I don't like it, it's probably something which I prefer not to face up to, or it's going to change me in some way, like stop drinking. So I didn't like AA. I rejected it as a philosophy. I knew the 12 steps were good because they were very good basic management principles and business principles as much as anything, and they are life principles. So the 12 steps do work. And in September we're coming to the end of the how do we clear the wreckage of the past, which is making amends and restitution where we can without doing further harm to other people, nor expecting an amends back if we're thinking that it was not just my fault. So it is about tidying up, but also recognising that sometimes we've forgotten what we did, and the amend that needs to be made, or restitution which needs to be made, is immediate as we encounter people from our past or past situations come up. What a wonderful programme. It's difficult because we have to be open, honest and willing. And the old saying, honesty is the best policy, is true. But trying to find out what the truth is, I needed other people to help me. In that book, Daily Reflections, I'll read it out first and then go on to my reflections and some of the things which have been on my mind. For September the 25th, first things first. The first thing I should have done this morning, maybe, is shut the windows, but it's Sunday morning, so I was hoping for a fairly quiet morning. First things first, some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth. Job or no job, wife or no wife, we simple or husband or no husband. There weren't many females in the fellowship in early days, but what has become apparent is that alcoholism is a part of life. Doesn't matter whether you're male, female, or whatever else you are. It can happen to anyone, and that's a great gift of fellowship. Whatever you do, whoever you are, it can happen to you. Wife or no wife, husband or no husband, we simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence on God. Now, if you're an agnostic or an atheist, that might sort of, why should they ever use the word God? Well, I put in high power, so ahead of dependence on truth, love and wisdom. So if I depend on people to keep me sober exclusively, that is, I find a higher power in another person. If I try and latch onto a person to help me, I'm more likely to pull them down rather than be pulled up. So the higher power for me is truth, love and wisdom, which comes from the whole fellowship and the whole of life these days, to be a part of life and a part of fellowship. So truth is the absolute truth and not my opinions or beliefs. Love, how to love, be loved back and useful, and the wisdom which comes from others. And it's the many voices in AA which work for me. If I relied on one voice, I would be sunk, because that's just one outlook. I need every outlook on sobriety, and that's what helps me in the sharing of it. Before coming to AA, I always had excuses for taking a drink. She said, he said, I got fired yesterday, I got a great job today. No area of my life could be good if I drank again, is what it's saying. In sobriety, my life gets better each day. I must always remember not to drink, to trust God, and to stay active in AA. Am I putting anything before my sobriety, God and AA today? Now these are harsh realities, no matter what you think your higher power may be. So for me it's truth, love and wisdom. Gandhi said God is truth, love, wisdom, or near enough. And most people can understand that as a concept. The greater wisdom is always available to me. So I put sober first, so that I can find the truth. Sober I can find the truth, love and be loved, find wisdom. But if I put anything in between that, like loving, it's like saying, if I don't put sober first, I'm not going to be able to experience today as well as it could be. So if I, contingent on the day I ask for help and utilise these 12 principles in my life, and they become second nature because they free us up to love, be loved and useful. That's how it is. So the word God doesn't impede me these days, or I find it quite reassuring that my higher power, the God I call, the high power I call God, truth, love and wisdom, works for me. And of course, as human beings, everybody experiences and defines God or no God. But the most important thing for me to know is I'm not God. I'm better off as a trusted servant in fellowship and learning life. And that way I'm not trying to undermine my own or anybody else's. Nor am I trying to impose my views on you, because it's the God of your understanding, the higher power of your understanding, which must, I hope, maybe it doesn't, for me it must, go towards the truth, the real truth, love and wisdom of life, which I'm learning all the time, because I'm not drunk. So, why get hung up on a word, or why get hung up on a concept that belongs to other people? A higher power, knowing that I'm not it, and having the humility to keep on learning, is the absolute essential for me, and it's okay not to know. It's okay to make mistakes. And one of the things which used to get me, this was where I got really, really chewed up inside. Somebody said, at your age and with your experience, you ought to know that. And of course, that is the greatest bullying tool of all. You ought to know that. Or, it is part of it. But the thing is, if you said, well, it's beyond my life experience, so I need some guidance. And if the person can't provide it, they're using it as a weapon against you. Ignorance is not bliss. But to say to somebody, you ought to know this by now, is implying that I ought to have had that life experience to know what you're talking about. And if I haven't had it, I can say, well, it's beyond my life experience, and if you're thinking I ought to know it, help me. And if you're not willing to help me, that's what I would say. Mind you, I often say to people these days when they try and impose their views on me, because we're not here to actually kowtow to anybody, but we are here to listen. So when somebody imposes their views or says you shouldn't be doing that, I sometimes say, and mind your own business. And if they keep on, then fuck off. And I feel gleeful saying that, because for many a year I didn't realise it was possible to tell somebody where to go. I felt I had to, be accepting of their point of view. Now I don't, always, but I want to respect people. But if they don't respect me and my values and outlooks, or they think that I ought to know something they know, if they don't respect me enough to share their outlooks and how they got there, they do need to move along. Anyway, my thoughts this morning, coming out of one or two things which have happened to me over the last 24 hours. Emotional and spiritual. Feelings in the moment of now. That used to be beyond me. Emotional and spiritual. Feelings in the moment of now. Emotional, feelings, spiritual, in the moment. It was beyond me. A fellowship based on emotional and spiritual well-being, that's AA. Someone apologised for their atheist outlook recently. In fact, it was last night. I don't connect spiritual, this is me, I don't connect spiritual with religion. Many do, and that's really okay, and not for me to judge. In fellowship, our primary purpose is sober, contingent on our spiritual condition today. So contingent on my spiritual condition, which I hope is in the moment, with humility to keep on learning, I can be sober comes fairly naturally these days. Now, sober, our similarity, everyone happily, unique and different. This is how I see it. This is just my opinion, so please find your own truth around this. It's important. Everything is spiritual in the present moment. The quality of the experience, a personal journey, day by day. So, sober doesn't guarantee that your spiritual experience is going to be happiness. But it guarantees that if happiness is on offer, it may happen if you're open to happiness. Equally, if life is pretty awful and things happen, your spiritual experience, like mine, might be a bit undermined. Now, I went out to get some paracetamol for my 2 slipped discs yesterday and my trapped nerve, and managed to slip on a pavement. I think I've done some quite bad damage to my ankle, so I'm waiting to see how black it will go and how big my foot gets, and it's getting to the point now where a trip to the emergency department is probably required, because it's painful to walk on and I've got to be careful because I'm type 1 diabetic, and anything to do with circulation and breakages is not such a good idea, so I may find myself down at A&E later, or I may have to get a lift from an ambulance, and that, you see, I don't really want to do that. If I can get there with a Wellington boot on my bicycle, which is electric, and get home without too much fuss, I prefer that. And if I get an iron boot to wear, I can get to a meeting tonight, or I can get to a meeting and go tomorrow. The options are open to me. I can be silly and leave it too long, but I know if it's a break, I know what to do. I've broken it twice before, and broken other bones in that foot too. It always seems to be that foot. Isn't it always the way? So, my personal journey day by day, physically today, is not so good. Still got 2 slipped discs, a trapped nerve, and now a dodgy foot, which is where I started 2 years ago. But in my heart and in my feelings, if you like, about life ain't so bad, because I did get to the meeting last night and it was a hoot. It was very funny, very serious but very funny. And there were newcomers there from a few days, and people in their 20s, 30s and 40s years of sober living, continuous sober living. And I like hearing both sides of the coin. So, my other thought this morning, I hear my story in the rooms of AA, how I got to be an alcoholic, my feelings about me and life, and what is happening day by day for me and many others living a sober life. And with freedom to make choices based on real opportunities rather than fantasies. I still dream and imagine, feel inspired by good fortune. I take my knocks and deal with them and find peace and serenity when it is happening now. Everything changes and I see it day by day. The gift of recovery. Sober, I get all this extra stuff to deepen, widen and broaden my experience of life. And I thought I was a spiritual giant in the past. What I've learned is spiritual is day-sized, right-sized, real-sized. But the breadth, depth and width of our happiness or sadness or joy, love or hate, all those emotions lived soberly are extraordinarily meaningful in the moment and dealt with more often in the moment. So my feelings happen. When I had my feelings fit my experience. So when I hurt my foot yesterday, there was a shriek from me of very bad language, thinking, oh no, I've done it again, with horrible crack. Anyway, previous years, between 2005 and 2010, just a couple of things. My daily maintenance, which is part of me, how am I feeling, why, what can I do? From old friends and other times, Rosemary and Philip, who must be many years into retirement by now, and I hope they're still alive because they're great people. They helped me. I went on a training experience with them about how to be assertive and how to have empathy. And so I asked myself some basics of me. When I wake up, how am I feeling? Why do I feel this way? And what can I do about it? 3 simple questions give me a surprise every day. Because if I don't ask myself how am I feeling, I can go around all grumpy and wonder why later. But if I wake up grumpy and say how am I feeling, I'm grumpy. Why? Bad night's sleep, foot hurts. Well, there are other things I can do today, like go to accident and emergency. Not my preferred choice. If I know how I feel when I get up, why I feel this way, and what can I do to keep it that way or change how I feel. Now this changing of feelings, by doing something different my feelings will change, or if they remain the same I need to look at what I'm doing, if they're bad ones, but if they're good feelings, more of the same, sober. Well, this is good to do. It takes practice daily to understand what my feelings are, because for years my feelings were always playing catch up. I felt things in the moment, but I pushed them down because they were awkward. Like if somebody said, I love you, in the past, I would smile and say, oh, yes, I love you too. But I didn't know how to accept love from others, nor how to give it that well. And then feel it later, feel, my God, that person, what am I missing out on? Why couldn't I respond with the same feeling? Or know what my feelings were. So in sobriety, I'm learning my feelings day by day. I'm glad I am. Yeah, it does take practice daily to understand what they are. Simply because we are told we must never show some of our feelings, which some consider bad or unhelpful. So if you're true to yourself and true to other people, you share sober this is, not drunk. Because my feelings were all over the place when I was drunk. I think some instincts went out of proportion in some respects, in some aspects of my love life. But that's the same for the people I was with, because, yeah, that's just the way it was. Anyway, there is something around this on a daily basis called, which is known to be acceptance of life on life terms. And on page 417 in the 4th edition, 449 in the 3rd edition, is the passage on acceptance, and it goes like this. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life, unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. So, at this moment, feelings in the moment of now. Absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Or, absolutely nothing happens in the world by mistake. Because there are no mistakes in the world, it's just the way it is. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world, because I can't change it, as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. So me and my attitudes can be changed by learning with humility and the wisdom of people around me who seem to have a better grip on reality. This bit comes from someone else, so it's not my words. For me, serenity began when I learned to distinguish between those things that I could change and those I could not. When I admitted that there were people, places and things and situations over which I was totally powerless, those things began to lose their power over me. So, powerless over alcohol, people, places and things, those elements lose their power over me. I don't have to control or manage anything to do with other people. So, I was totally powerless. Those things began to lose their power over me. I learned that everyone has the right to make their own mistakes and learn from them without my interference, judgment or assistance. Which is why it's so important in fellowship we say we are all trusted servants, and if somebody's getting on your cloud, you shout to them, hey, you, get off my cloud, as Mr. Jagger would have said in the 60s. It was my grandma's favourite record. Oh no, that was I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which really upset Grandad. But that's just Grandad's problem. He's dead too now, unfortunately. He died of alcohol. Well, alcohol was a big part of his life. The key to my serenity is acceptance, but acceptance does not mean that I have to like it, condone it, or even ignore it. What it does mean is I am powerless to do anything about it, and I have to accept that fact. So I'm not here to change the world or you, but I can change me and my attitudes. And I can join in and share and say what's on my mind. But it's not for me to manage, control others, people, places and things. Make use of? No. To be a part of, to be included, means that I have my say too. But it doesn't mean I'm going to get my own way. And I can only even do that being sober and not totally self-oriented. I think I'll leave it there for today. It's enough. This program's given me a lot. A raison d'etre, a reason for life, which is to be loved and useful. So I have to work out what maintenance steps I need to do physically today. Emotionally and spiritually I'm not too bad. I accept my condition. Now what to do? Careful, very careful. Walking stick. Look at the swelling, see what I can do. The serenity prayer, always helpful in any moment. The serenity prayer is an exhortation to a higher power, some call God. The higher power is not us. So truth, love and wisdom works for me always. I'm sharing what works for me, not what's working for you or other people. So it's always the many voices in the fellowship and outside the fellowship which inform us what the truth of life is today, and how we fit in, and how we may fit in. Freedom to choose how we can connect with the world. That's what's really happened for me. To God, or in good conscience, it's about can do, can change me, can't change you. Wisdom to know the difference. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And in the moment, and just for today.